Welcome to episode 3 of Weekly Account Fixing. Let's get right into it. This week's episode is going to be yet another very different episode, as I haven't discovered some OP character in my account or anything, but focused on catching up with things I had put aside. And so, the first thing I'll talk about is exploration. I did one world quest this week, the entire questline for Chenyu Vale. Honestly, I picked the first quest I saw in my quest log. It wasn't too long, the scenery was pretty, not really much else to add to that. Friday, I watched the version 5.8 trailer, and here's how I feel about it. The new area seems fun, plus it gives me more Natlan to explore to complete my Tablet of Tona and my Pyro statues, so pretty cool. The events look fine, not too interesting or too boring. The Bennett skin looks cute, so it's at least a nice reward. As for the weapon, unless I missed it, there was no info about it, apart that it's a claymore, which I don't think I have much use for. I don't necessarily care much for story usually, so everything related to Inefa's lore and the spooky region didn't really have much of my attention. Similarly, the banners were mostly uninteresting. I say mostly because, while I don't really want Inefa, the new character of the patch, and don't really care about Chaska or Mwalani, Sitlali was, unfortunately, announced to be rerunning this patch. I don't particularly like or dislike Sitlali. In fact, I would say I'm quite indifferent about her. However, I'm also aware she is an extremely strong addition to meld teams. And from what I understand, that's also an understatement. She doesn't appear to be a strong addition to meld teams. She seems to be the primary enabler of forward melt, a reaction 33% stronger than Vaporize. Not only that, her ability to reduce pyro resistance by 20 percentage points, as well as being able to equip Scroll of the Hero of Cinder City artifact set for free 40% elemental damage bonus to the party, and being a Catalyst user, allowing the use of Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers for 48% attack boost to a party member, turns her from a good support for Pyro main DPS to a must-have. Arlecchino, one of my most used characters, happens to be a Pyro main DPS. And so, unfortunately for me, it seems I'll have to break my Primogem saving for 5.8, and hope to get Sitlali. Even more unfortunately, Sitlali will be in the first half of the patch, meaning less time to gather Primogems. A scary thought when I'm also required to win my 50-50 to obtain her, and currently sit on 3 petty in the character banner. Still, every dark cloud has a silver lining, and mine is Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers. This powerhouse of a weapon, a 3-star weapon that came out at the same time as the game, in 1.0, remains one of the most competitive choices for Catalyst supports who don't have a crazy dependency on their signature weapon, which Sitlali fortunately doesn't. Now, you might be thinking, hold on Aya, you played in 5.3. Why didn't you wish for Sitlali then? That's a great question, and I have 2 great answers. First, I didn't exactly have a Pyro DPS at the time. I had Yoimiya and Diluc, neither of which saw much use. 5.3 is actually the version I got Arlecchino and her weapon in. And if you remember 5.3, you know that Arlecchino was on banner in the second half of the patch. Turns out, I didn't actually play for the first half of the patch. So 5.8 will be my first time seeing the Sitlali banner. Could I have planned ahead and saved since 5.3, knowing Natlan character would probably all rerun before 6.0? Absolutely, but that would have meant skipping on Furina, Shangyun, and Skirk. An almost universal buffer, an almost required addition to my Shao team, and one of the coolest characters to play to date in my opinion. I'll gladly potentially miss out on Sitlali for the characters I got. And really, it's not all doomed. I still have more or less 4 weeks to gather 180 pulls for the absolute worst case scenario. And I still have plenty of exploration, both world quests and main story, as well as the upcoming events, to earn some Primogems. It's gonna be a ton of work, for sure, but I'm certain it will be worth it in the end. Speaking of work that ends up worth it, on top of the 1,330 resin I spent this week on various things, we'll get to that in a moment, I magically made quite a bit more appear, and without using a single one of my fragile resins, which I'm keeping for reasons I'm not aware of myself. And before you ask, no, I didn't spend Primogems on resin refills either. You see, I always knew using the Strongbox feature in the game was a good idea. I knew trading off artifact experience for more artifacts was a smart choice, but I never really knew how good of a choice it was, until I did some calculations, which I'm sure have already been done plenty of times in the past. Here's what I found out. Any one artifact of a specific set costs on average 40 resin. That's 20 resin for redeeming from the domain, and since the chance of obtaining the desired set is only 50%, that doubles the cost to 40. Now, a trash artifact is only worth 20 resin, as the artifact set doesn't matter if the artifact is trash to begin with. That means using the Strongbox convert 3 trash artifacts, or 60 resin, into 40 resin. Now, unless my math is wrong, Strongbox essentially lets you spend 66.6% more resin. Granted, you are farming artifacts. Whilst I did know the Strongbox was worth it, I didn't think it added that much value. And so my inventory of about 1,200 artifacts, mostly unsorted junk, was finally put to use. Of course, that took quite a lot of time. But after a little more than an hour, I converted about 800 artifacts with a Strongbox, which also happened to give me more trash in return, as well as a couple pieces with potential. In total, I estimate that I generated about 290 more artifacts through the Strongbox, or about 5,800 resin. With the natural resin regeneration of 180 resin per 24 hours, that is more than 32 days worth of resin. You heard that right. In an hour and a half of sorting through my artifacts, I progressed my account by an entire month. Now, what set did I Strongbox exactly? I thought about all the possibilities. The characters I use want the following: Noblesse for Xianyun and Bennett, Tenacity for Kokomi and Feruzen, Fragment of Harmonic Whimsy for Arlecchino, Golden Troop for Farina, Emblem of Severed Fate for Xingqiu. Zhongli is fine on any set, and both Xiao and Skirk want sets that are not in a Strongbox. However, it was important for me to also consider what domains drop from these sets. Of those, both Tenacity and Golden Troop were eliminated, as these domains drop secondary sets that I can make use of, Pale Flame being Eula's best set, and Maréchaussée Hunter being extremely good for the free crit rate. I also eliminated Fragment of Harmonic Whimsy, as unfortunately, even if it's Arlecchino's best set, she also is its only user, at least that I know of. That leaves us with Noblesse and Emblem of Severed Fate. One of those two domains is significantly worse. On one hand, Bloodstained Chivalry, an honestly terrible set and outclassed by Pale Flame for Eula, my only physical DPS. On the other hand, Shimenawa's Reminiscence, which actually has a usable 2-piece effect. The choice seems pretty clear-cut, right? Well, there is one last thing to take into account. While I did mention I need Noblesse for 2 characters and Emblem for 1, Emblem also happens to fit with a lot more characters that I own or plan to get. Xingqiu, as well as Raiden Shogun, Beidou, Xiangling, and even Yellen, who is on my wishlist, all want Emblem as their primary set. So I waved goodbye to Noblesse, and went with Emblem. Of the 300 artifacts I saw in that set, 3 turned out to be direct upgrades to what I was already using, and a lot more with potential are still sitting in my inventory waiting for me to spare them resources. Finally, this week marked the Spiral Abyss reset. I did attempt the previous one before the change, but changing Bennett's weapon to a Killif Avonia from Favonius' sword left him with energy recharge problems that kept me from squeezing a couple more stars out of my clear. Still, when the Abyss changed on Wednesday, I managed to throw Bennett some ER sands laying around, and went into the new Abyss ready. Here's your montage. These blessings felt a little worse for my Alikino team, still usable though, as it was tailored toward Mafuika, who shares the same element. I did do a couple of retries on the ones that I felt really close to an extra star, and while getting 6 star was really no sweat, I couldn't even get 1 extra star. Unfortunately, I expect that if I'm not able to increase both my team's power by the next Abyss, I will probably not be able to maintain 6 stars, as I doubt the blessings tailored for Inifa, Citlali, Chaska, and Moanani will work very well with my teams. Okay, that's all I had to talk about. Now let's get on with the recaps. This week, I earned 2,832, bringing my total up to 5,554. As per usual, 630 from Welkin and 420 from commissions. 700 for the Spiral Abyss reset, with 9 stars in 9, 10, and 11, and 6 stars again in 12. 440 from events, being the multiplayer event and the online daily check-in. 300 from the 5.8 livestream codes. And finally, 342 from the Chainyu Veil quest, achievements, and the exploration inside the quest. I again did not spend a single Primogem, leaving me with the full 5,554 Primogems and 1 Intertwined Fate, or the equivalent of 35 pulls. As for the resin, here's our breakdown. A total of 220 went towards the Kill of Evonia materials, which got my weapon to level 90. 90 accumulated resin to the All-Devouring Narwhal, Everlasting Lord of Arcane Wisdom, and the Unresolved Game of Chess, which went a lot smoother when bringing a freeze team. 1020 was spent in the Skirk artifact domain, with unfortunately not a lot to show for. This is where all my resin went this week. Next week, my plan is to keep farming Skirk artifacts, strongboxing the trash for Xingqiu, and trying to do a little more exploration still. That's gonna be it for today. If you like the series, be sure to subscribe to not miss next episode.